His commentary and analysis is among the best, bar none. His words serve as a masterclass. He deconstructs the deceptions of the PSYOP war. He is the author of The Greatness Awaits You, the national leader of Australia One Party Incorporated, a monthly panel participant in JMC's Global Defense War, in a league of his own, an international treasure, a follower of Jesus Christ. He is Ricardo Bosi. Ricardo Bosi is a published author and speaker, international business consultant, former Australian Army Special Forces Lieutenant Colonel, having served 24 years in the Australian Army, including postings to the Special Air Service Regiment, the 1st Commando Regiment, Headquarters Special Operations, and the U.S. Combined Joint Task Force Headquarters in Kuwait. Don't miss JMC Broadcasting's Bosi Briefs, where John sits down with Ricardo, helping to connect the dots, making sense of the madness, keeping us all grounded and united as the battle between good and evil play out before our very eyes. Join John and Ricardo every other Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here at jmcbroadcasting.com.
Welcome back to Bosi Briefs. It's great to be here with you. My name is John Michael Chambers. Here it is, March 14th, 2026, and thank you for joining us. This program publishes every other Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, where Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bosi weighs in on current events. Please do share these episodes far and wide and subscribe for free at jmcbroadcasting.com. I'd like to make mention of a book I have here in my possession, just received. Not only is it Greatness Awaits You, Ricardo Bosi, it is also, if I find it, there it is. It is also signed by Ricardo Bosi with a personal note, which I treasure and value very much. I'll be opening up the pages of this book and getting through it before the next Bosi Briefs and provide my commentary. But as you all well know, Greatness Awaits You is in its 5th reprint, and you can pick up your copy by visiting wilkinsonpublishing.com. That's WILKINSON, www.wilkinsonpublishing.com.au. All right, and if there's anything wrong there, Rick will correct me. But I wanted to thank Ricardo for the book. Very much look forward to diving into it and see as I apply the principles in the book to my personal life and to the work I do here at JMC Broadcasting. All right, we're going to bring retired Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bosi on. You've been waiting. We missed an episode. It's our 2nd year. We're very excited to get into this broadcast. There's a lot to talk about. Let's talk about the dead man switches. Dead man's switches embody different deterrence, through inevitability. They make aggression riskier by guaranteeing retaliation even after the head is cut off. Military nuclear context. The famous Soviet dead hand perimeter system, a semi-automatic nuclear retaliation setup that could launch if leaders were eliminated and certain conditions were met. So let's connect the dots on President Trump's lightning strikes in Venezuela, Mexico, and Iran. These are moves that dismantled the deep state's dead man switches in under 12 hours. This is precision warfare, paving the way for the arrests we've all been waiting for. So first we began, as you recall, with Venezuela. I believe Trump struck a behind-the-scenes deal with the current leadership to extract Maduro as a key witness against the deep state puppets in the U.S. Obama, Brennan, Comey, Hillary, and their tangled web of China in stealing the 2020 election. Maduro's testimony will contribute to blowing the lid off the fraud, the foreign interference, and the cabal's playbook. That's why, for now, Edmundo Gonzalez Urrutia, pardon the French, or the Spanish, I should say, the real winner, stays sidelined in Venezuela. Rodriguez holds the fort while the extraction plays out, moves and counter moves. Second, Mexico and the cartels. President Trump neutralized key figures in the Sinaloa, sorry, folks, and Jalisco, the new generation cartels. These are the names of the cartels, plus their embedded assets in U.S. border towns. These were the dead man switches designed to unleash terror, mass casualties, and chaos if arrests hit the deep state elite. And this brings us front and center to Iran. Taking out Khomeini, the Khomeini regime eliminated the Middle East dead man switch. You see on the screen here a photograph. This was a video clip. You may have seen it on social media prior to Epic Fury's operation, where this, I think it was a woman or a man, it's hard to tell, was writing on this wall, as you see on the screen, President Trump, please help. Well, President Trump is doing more than helping. So again, third is Iran. Taking out the Khomeini regime eliminated the Middle East dead man switch. If major U.S. arrests began, Iran was primed to unleash hell on our Sunni allies and Israel, sparking a regional war to distract and divide. Trump snuffed that out in hours in terms of the initial capture, death. President Trump effectively removed proxy terror and shields for the globalists in less than 12 hours again. The board is cleared, the threats are neutralized. We'll jump into current status with Iran in just a moment. Sun Tzu, the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. President Trump outmaneuvered the deep state. They are cornered and their switches flipped off. The Great Awakening will accelerate from here. Let the arrests begin. Gitmo is fully functional and other locations, and nothing can stop what's coming. Having said that, for those that are just coming aboard, everyone, of course, knows Ricardo, but those newly coming aboard, Ricardo Bosi is a former Australian Army Special Forces Lieutenant Colonel who served 24 years in the Australian Army. He is the national leader of Australia One Party. So please welcome back retired Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bosi.
John, good morning. Great to see you.
Good to see you, sir. Thanks for being here. Pardon me to Ricardo and to our audience for not such a smooth monologue, but I think you get my message, folks. And if you didn't, you'll get it as we unpack it right now with Ricardo Bosi. Let's talk about Iran.
Okay, sure. Thanks, John. This is a big one, but let's do our best to simplify a large complex job. First of all, from the strategic perspective, Iran is nothing but another campaign within the entire strategy. Venezuela is part of the campaign, Iran's part of the campaign, Mexico's part of the campaign, and there have been these operational level activities, and that's all they are. You've got tactical, which is sort of the 6 inches in front of your face. Operation will be a campaign on a national level, let's say, and the strategy and the grand strategy is how all these work together. And so what you have seen in the past with those other operations, and what you will see continuing into the future, a series of sequenced operational level campaigns, which contributes to the overall strategic goal. So the shooting itself, whilst it attracts everybody's attention, and as it should, that's just an operational level activity within the larger strategy, and then within the larger, yet again, grand strategy for the operation. Now, if you're having difficulty grasping all the moving parts, that's because you're not supposed to. That's the whole idea. Nobody knows the whole story. Not even Archangel Michael knows God's plan. He just does his best to, kick tail that he's supposed to. Mm-hmm. And the rest of us are just doing our best to follow, to see the tectonic movements, to pick up the patterns of behavior. So first of all, this is just it's an important one, but it's just another operation campaign within the overarching strategy. That's point number one. Point number two, all operations, let's talk about this operation now. It has a number of objectives to be achieved. Some are strategic in their reach, some are operational, and some are just tactical. So the strategic one, for example, is cutting off the control of a key ally of the City of London. So the City of London has been controlling Iran for the longest time. Khomeini, originally with the original Islamic Revolution, was put in place. The Shah was deposed, put in place. Then that was agreed by the people that run the planet. That wasn't a genuine Islamic revolution at all. It's just another, let's put somebody in charge who will do what they are told to do. And that's exactly what happened. And the beauty of controlling Iran is it is a good profit center for City of London because they can sell the oil and amongst other things. They control the Straits of Hormuz. That's always a big deal. And control of choke points is a key part of naval strategy, has been for over 120 years. A gentleman, US Navy captain called Mahan, wrote on a treatise on naval strategy, and is the naval equivalent of Clausewitz, who was the land equivalent of him, that wrote philosophically about the art of war, but one Clausewitz on land, Mahan on the sea. And one of his key points was, and this is just one of many, the control of choke points around the planet controls the planet. You control trade, you control the movement of naval vessels. And so you've got a profit center for the City of London. You've got this capacity to block the Straits of Hormuz, which controls 20% of the seaborne oil. And by virtue of that, controls the income of key countries like the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and others. And then the provision of that oil to India and China, and the impact on India, China, and maybe even Japan, because of their capacity to crush those economies or degrade them significantly with a global impact. And so there you go. And then the third one is simply just the military capability of destroying Iran, so it cannot interfere either in a nuclear or in a conventional sense. Both are important. And so there's a number of different level objectives being achieved with Iran. A very, very important key one. The most important, the strategic one, of course, is simply the loss of control by the City of London of one of its key profit centers and control mechanisms that can either disrupt or allow the planet to function. So if I'll stop there, let you jump in if you want to. John asked some questions, but there's plenty more to go as we dive deeper into that.
Thank you, Rick, for getting me on track here. I've had a rough opening here. I apologize to everybody. There are a few things I'd like you to weigh in on. One is, and we'll get more deeper into the crux of this thing as you were just doing, but I do want to address once again, people within our movement, as they've done time and time again, like with Jeffrey Epstein's release, with the strategy that was deployed by the president stating, we don't need to look at Epstein. It's old news, why waste our time? That whole strategy with Elon Musk dropping out the text that Trump's in the files, that whole deployment, everyone went crazy on Trump. And then, of course, later they eating crow and see what the strategy is. You would think they'd have learned from things like that and other things that came before it. And we see the same thing with Iran, on steroids. He needed congressional approval. What is he doing? He said, I'll be the president of peace. Here he is starting wars. How would you like to refute that narrative for the left, the mainstream media, and what I call the weak segment within our movement? Hit him.
Oh yeah, this is an interesting part of the war. It is by design. It is absolutely by design. What the White Hats are doing, they are ensuring. How can I put this? You ever leaned back after a lovely meal at the dinner table, and you lean back on the chair, and you're pivoting on those last two back legs, and you just catch yourself because you're about to topple over, and you come forward. That's where the White Hats are keeping everybody. The good guys, the bad guys, the civilians, the military. Everyone is constantly uncertain. This is by design. They are keeping everybody uncertain. People are trying to make their minds up of what's going on. They'll get a handle on events, and then something changes and it flummoxes them. They go, "What the hell? Why did Trump say that? Why did Trump do this? Why has that occurred?" What, in a technical sense, what the White Hats are doing, they're keeping everybody They're getting inside everyone's decision cycle. Now, there's an idea and it started off from a US pilot. His name was John Boyd, and he was one of the best natural pilots. And used to call him 40-second Boyd because it took him 40 seconds to take out the adversary. And what he did was, for him, it was a science and an art, and a very simple concept called the OODA loop. And I'll explain that in a minute. And once you get the idea of the OODA loop, you'll understand exactly why the MAGA people are constantly being sidelined. People are being distracted, and nobody's sure about anything. And the OODA loop is this. What this US pilot John Boyd came up with was, I'm in a plane and I'm flying and I'm observing the airspace around me. I observe the enemy, and then I orientate myself towards the enemy so I can engage with my guns. Then I make a decision, and then I act. So it's observe, orientate, decide, act. This is a decision cycle, and you're constantly going through this decision cycle. You know, shoot down that plane, back to observing, back to orientating, back to deciding, back to acting. Now that is a very simple concept, and yet it later informed not only a man in a plane shooting down an adversary. You know, the Sabre jets, the US Sabres were defeating the MiG-15s in Korea. Although the MiGs were more capable aircraft, the US pilots were getting more kills than the Russians were, or the Chinese, or whoever was flying them at the time. And the idea was that what John Boyd came up with was, you get into their decision cycle. That's point number one. So they're observing, they're orientating, they're getting ready to decide, but then situation changes so quickly they have to go back to observing and orientating because the world has changed. So if you get in someone's decision cycle, they can never get to that last part, which is to act. Because as Napoleon said, there's nothing more important than speed of decision. A good decision's got to be reached quickly. And getting in someone's personal decision cycle, and it's easy to understand a decision cycle of a pilot in an aircraft. He's looking around, spotted the enemy, he's orientated, he's made a decision, but then the situation changes and he's got to re-observe, reorientate, and go again. So now you're in his decision cycle, never gets to squeeze the trigger, never gets to take the action. So that's what the White Hats are doing to the entire planet. They're keeping all of us, you, me included, we're doing our best to make sense of the nonsense. But they're doing that on purpose in order to keep us uncertain and off balance. As I said, leaning back on the chair after dinner, and you're constantly catching yourself. This is by design. Now, why? Why are they doing that? One, operational security is the obvious first answer. They don't want anybody to know what's going on. That's point number one. And we've spoken about that before. Point number two, they are showing the population of the planet what it's like to be involved in a war for real. Because normally we sit at home, we're having a meal, turn on the news, 30 minutes of news, apparently 30 minutes of the news, and we think we're full bottle on what's going on the planet. And the war's been something over there that's been reported to us. And for the first time, we're actually involved. Oh, there's a nuclear threat. Oh my God, that might affect us. Oh my goodness me, I've got friends in Dubai, and a drone flew into the Iran counterattacked by sending drones into the building. And all of a sudden, it's real. It's not like, I don't know, Vietnam, it's in the middle of the jungle. Who knows what's really going on there? It's not in Africa somewhere. It's not, no, this is now, it's in Dubai. People go to Dubai. People like Dubai. It's a great place. I live there. It's fantastic. But all of a sudden you've got drones flying into buildings, allegedly. So the second point is now they're realizing, my gosh, wars are frightening. Wars are confusing. I'm not sure what's going on. So that's point number two. And this is a result of their failure to hold their elected representatives to account. The whole war is being conducted. This is the third point now, because apparently we're allowed to give every lunatic a nuclear weapon. That's okay. And successive leaders of every country on the planet has said, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, okay, well, Pakistan can have a nuke and India's got a nuke, and there's some sort of a crazy balance there. And we can't do anything about Iran. We can't say that the Islamic mindset is just pure insanity, and to give them a nuke is doubly so, doubly insane. You can't do that because that's offensive. And now what the White Hats are showing the planet is, you've got to stand up, you've got to have a straight back, you've got to have the courage of your convictions and actually put a finger in somebody's face and say, you're too crazy to have a nuke and we're going to stop you. Why? Because we can, and it's smart to do so. And what are you going to do? Defend Iran's right to evaporate the planet? This is grown-up time. That's the third point now. So the White House is showing everybody, you can't sit back and complain when somebody finally, in this case it's DJT in the White House, finally stands up and says, no, this far and no further. You've gone too far. We're going to evaporate your capability. And if that means killing people, then so be it. And if it means taking casualties, so be it. This idea that you don't have casualties in war is a purely left-wing Western mindset that's been perpetrated on the people to say, oh no, we win wars. What the movie is an hour and 23 minutes. That's great. And by the end, the good guys win, the bad guys lose. 50 guys have died to save one woman. That's always a subtext of these films. The disposable men, hundreds of us die, so some good-looking bird with a 36C cup gets saved by the guy in the end. And that's what they think war's about. And to the point, just so I make a point on that, in the West, in the thinking of it, if you go back in the history, like World War I was an attrition warfare. You just got to kill more of the other side. And if you've got one left and they've got none left, you win. That's an attrition warfare. And that's brutal and deadly. But then we introduced maneuver. This is the third phase warfare, 3G warfare, where we had maneuver, we had armored vehicles, we had tanks, etc. And now the trick was to maneuver the adversary into a position of surrender. Now that works really well, sort of, when you're dealing with a Western army fighting a Western army, because we have the same psychological approach to war. We have the same morality. But when you're dealing with fucking lunatics, excuse the French, that doesn't work. You can't maneuver them into surrender because they're not going to. And so the world has to relearn. And what we have never forgotten, you kill yourself, you've got to kill your way to victory. It means you kill enough of them till they stop. And if that means you kill all of them, so be it. Now, this sounds abhorrent and horrible. And I'm just a militant, bonehead military guy that can't think of a way to solve the problem. It's exactly the opposite, because soldiers are the last ones that go to war. But if we want to go to war, we want to win. And how do you win? By killing. That's what armies are for. And I'm being very direct in my language here. It's not about, oh, he's unalived himself or destroy the enemy. No, we kill them until they can't breathe. And then they will run away. One of my favorite General Napier, who ended the tradition of sati in India, in the subcontinent, where the widow of a recently deceased man had to throw herself on the funeral pyre. And he said, no, you don't do that anymore. And he stopped it. And he had a rule in settling down crazies. And that was extreme brutality followed by extreme kindness. But the brutality's got to come first. So they're on their knees begging for forgiveness. Now, once again, this is hurtful to the left-wing loons. And these are the same left-wing loons that will rip out a baby at full term, let it cry and die on a kidney dish on a bench, and that's okay, that's healthcare. But when someone's got a gun and they're shooting at you, if you want to kill them, you're some sort of sicko. And this is where the Western mindset, because I can guarantee you the rest of the world doesn't suffer from what we suffer from. Not at all. Others are out there, they go, we're going to war, we're going to kill you until you stop fighting or you're all dead. And that's something that the Western people, the civilians, and I feel sorry for the civilians, this is a rapid lesson in realpolitik, real war, real life. Because what you've been persuaded to believe is that we can apologize our war into victory.
Thank you. How would you rate the performance? Performance, well, it's an applicable word, but how would you rate the success of Epic Fury to date?
Excellent. Okay. Here's how there's an operation, large or small, is always broken down into phases. You break out what you've got to do. You break it down into achievable phases. You have lines of operation where geographically determined. You have lines of effort where are conceptually determined. For example, you've got a geographic line of operation in Iraq, but then you've got the line of effort, which might be the cyber realm, the economic realm, the financial realm, the cultural realm, psychological. You can think of all the other now lines of effort involved in this operation. It's not just a kinetic op. There's more to it than just shooting. That's point number one, and I'll show you a diagram shortly to describe this complexity. So it's not just a kinetic op. But preceding all of these phases, you have what are called the preliminary phase. And this is all the preliminary actions that must take place before the first shots are fired. Now, this is standard. Doesn't matter whether you're a squad or a section attacking a little hill and you've got your 10 guys and away you go, or whether you're deploying all the assets of a national Department of War, as the US is doing. The preliminary operations must take place. A simple example of that would be for, you're attacking a hill, so let's lob some artillery on it for the next 43 days, as they did in Iraq, the Iraq War. And that was prelim ops. The troops didn't cross the line until the enemy had been beaten into submission, and people cried and wailed, and oh my God, they used bulldozers to bury them alive in their trenches. Grow up. Please, seriously. So that's a prelim op, let's say, in a very dull sense. But then the prelim op for this operation is far more sophisticated. It does include a lot of deniable special force activity, without a doubt, but it's also got clandestine covert activities. It's also got the financial aspects. It's got the communications aspect. It's got all these prelim ops had to precede the operation. Now, these prelim ops in this particular case go back years. As we said, and I'll show you again this later, the executive orders that relate to, this is in Trump's first term, as they relate to the national security strategy, the prelim ops for this entire, for Venezuela, for Mexico, for Greenland, for what's coming next. There's more to come, folks. This is, watch for what's coming next, right? A is followed by B, is followed by C, and there's always D, E, F, and away you go. So there's more
C
to come.
for Cuba.
But all these prelim. Sorry again.
Sorry, I just said C. You said A, B, C. I said C for Cuba. In terms of what's coming.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely correct. And there's more to come. So it's a really good lesson. The last lesson out of this is for the people to sit down and stop reacting. Just sit and wait. 24, 48, 72, 96 hours. Just wait, and you'll start to see, okay, I'm starting to get it now. But these prelim ops have been going on years ago. They started years and years and years ago. If you want to, they went back decades in the penetration of the Iranian nuclear capability with the scientists, with agents penetrating the entire setup. So how do you think they knew exactly which deep underground facilities were doing the work that needed to be destroyed? And how did they know which ones they had to drop particular munitions on to make sure the inside was collapsed? So the prelim ops for Iran go back a long, long way. And it's not just, don't get me wrong, I'm not disparaging the efforts of the brave men and women in the sea, air, and land forces and cyber forces that are operating against Iran. But understand, this war was won, to your point about the art of war, you subdue them before you even start fighting. They're the preliminary operations. You create the conditions for the physical kinetic victory. And that takes, in this case, this has taken decades, and in our recent history, years to prepare. So what we're now seeing is the culminating event of many, many years in the planning. So let me just show you something. I'll share this slide to just put a picture into people's mind's eyes about what it means in terms of complexity in this continuum of conflict. So they understand this is not just simply a matter of, again, some military bonehead who can't think of a way out of a war.
While you're looking for that, I'm going to comment to get so you can focus your attention there, folks. The way I see this from a simple civilian standpoint, which is what I am, active duty civilian, but a civilian. Here's the bullets that I see that I like to speak to the weakened within our movement on. Let's connect a few dots. Number one, the 70s, back to Jimmy Carter. That's when this whole situation in Iran was taken over and ruined the lives of generations there. You have, and plus our hostages for 400 days, utter failure there. Let's fast forward, $1.6 billion on pallets in the dark of the night on a cargo jet that Barack Obama sent off to Iran, one of the biggest state sponsors of terrorism. Also, what was that money for? It wasn't to send children, feed starving children in third world countries. It was to build nuclear arsenals and to fund terrorism. So then Trump comes in and warns them to stop what they're doing. They don't. They chant death to America for how many years? As of recent, 2 thwarted attempts against Trump's life, death to Trump, death to America. As Ricardo just mentioned, the threat of nuclear arms against not just America, but the rest of the world, because these are crazy people, at least the ones in charge. And so we go in there, as Ricardo's brilliantly breaking down from a military perspective for us what we're doing. And my last summarizing statements as a simple observant civilian is, then you have, of course, look, imagine being a woman living in Iran all these years. We see them dancing on the streets in LA. We see them dancing on the streets that aren't being bombed in Iran. We're free, there's that benefit. And so if you're chanting death to America, you've got 2 failed attempts of assassinations that we know of as of relatively recent from them against Donald J. Trump. Tell me that's not enough reason to go in there and do what it is we're doing. I would say it certainly is. But that's, again, from the civilian standpoint. Take us much deeper, please, Colonel Bosi, if you will. Walk us through this.
Have you got that slide up, John?
Michael, we've got a blank screen. It says, this is Ricardo. We've got continuum of conflict and complexity, just the introduction page.
That's it. Right, let me take you through it. Yeah, okay, that's good. Fine. I'll build it up slowly. Okay, so the continuum of conflict and complexity. Now, since think that, and here's a question I like to ask groups, is the history of mankind the history of war punctuated by peace, or the history of peace punctuated by war? Because depending on how you answer that question, it very quickly demonstrates your knowledge of history, human history at least. So here's a picture, one I prepared earlier. On the x-axis, we've got time. On the y-axis, we have the threat level, the readiness condition known as DEFCON. Every nation has its own, but that tells describes the situation as determined by the government. Now, we're always in a series of peace, in a period of peacetime competition, whether it's economic or whether it's a bit of push and shove, the high seas, but it's peacetime competition. We haven't gone crazy. Then events start to escalate, and we go through a period of increasing tension. That, if it's not dealt with appropriately, and sometimes it's allowed to continue by the cabal that runs the joint, because they want this, they want the conflict, because conflict and war is a profit center for them. They get to achieve not only profit, but they also get to remove problems that are causing them some grief. After the conflict's done, we get decreasing tension, and then we slowly move back to a peacetime competition situation. Very simplistic, but as I said, but this is just to communicate a larger, more complex analysis. But this is just, I guess, tactics for tiny tots. So that's it. The continuum of conflict always exists. Now, in a kinetic sense, when we go to war, we're in this peacetime competition, things get hairy, there's a conflict, and then it goes back to a peacetime competition where the military or the kinetic assets that might be used in a war are at different readiness levels, and they're in the barracks sitting around polishing their rifles, or they're actually out there squeezing triggers. Now that makes a lot of sense, and people think, well, yeah, I get that. But the trouble is, war is not kinetic events, and we've learned that. And this is another lesson, courtesy of the White Hats, that we, the civilian population of the planet, are being forced to learn. Just because triggers aren't being squeezed doesn't mean there isn't a real war, a genuine war. Economic wars, destruction of, and I think, John, you mentioned one of Savin's involvement in the destruction of the Russian ruble, which would be a financial war. Then you got a cultural war, psychological war, informational war, nutritional war, chemical war, biological war, electromagnetic war, a pharmaceutical war, a legal war, you get my drift.
Mm-hmm.
There is always a threat. There is always a threat. There has never not been a threat. And there's always been actions against us in one way or another. Now, we've seen the line there of the kinetic assets and where they exist. But there are some events that are optimized during peacetime competition and less successful during conflict, and it comes back again during tension and peacetime competition. You can prosecute your war. There are others that it doesn't matter what stage you're at, it's always a good way to fight the war this way. And there are others that are great in peace, lousy elsewhere, and then once again great in peace. Now they're just 4 random lines. You can put 30 of those lines on there and then try to manage that from a headquarters perspective, knowing it's like a spider web. If you pluck one string, 3 or 4 or 5 others will move. This is the complexity built into the continuum of conflict. It is so complex. It is beyond one individual's mind to grasp. Now, the human mind, on average, can maintain in their short-term memory sort of tracking events 5 to 7 subjects. That's why the span of command of most organizations should be between 5 to 7. Anything beyond that, whoever is in charge, whether it's a general or a chief executive, there's too many. If you've got 11 reporters, 11 subordinates, say, reporting to you, that's too many. Most people between 5 and 7 is the max, and that's a biological limitation. Some are smarter, but that's about the planning figure for it. So trying to track this, you need AI, or maybe, who knows, ET technology, or maybe the angels have come down from heaven and they're helping them out. But the point is, this is so highly complex that you cannot begin to understand, not even a little bit, what's going on. So you're looking at Iran rather. You're looking at the kinetic aspect of it, but what you're not seeing, apart from the preliminary operations, what you're not seeing are all these other events, these other means of prosecuting the war, the other lines of effort, as I described earlier, and those red subjects at the base are the lines of effort. Those other lines of effort, and that's not all of them, that's just a handful. That's just a handful. They're operating, have been operating, are still operating, and will continue operating after the bombs stop dropping. So I'll just leave it there for the time being. We'll talk about something else in a minute, but you're going to understand that this is an extraordinarily difficult period. But the beauty of it is, that you can close that down now, I think, Michael.
Yeah, let's bring Ricardo back on screen. Thank you for walking us through that. Yeah, very complex, very, as you said, well planned out, well in advance from multiple lines. And I want to, this is a perfect segue because this is the next question I had. We've experienced Venezuela, hugely successful operation. We went in there and took care of some of the cartel issues. I'm not sure we're finished with Mexico. I'll get your opinion on that in a minute. But it's from my observations, and I think this is, you know, a lot of folks are in the same sentiment. We have Venezuela, we have Iran operation, hopefully winding down now. Then you've got Cuba next. I mean, the signs are there. That's what's next. Would you also think, and then you have North Korea, which we opened that door years ago when President Trump did what no other president ever did, that demilitarization zone crossover, shaking hands with little rocket man, downplaying, you know, the left had the whole narrative that he was going to nuke the whole world tomorrow morning. And of course, there's Trump and Rocket Man shaking hands and making jokes. But what North Korea is still out there. Look, the way I see it, is you get Venezuela, Iran. There's a common ground here in these countries: Cuba, North Korea, and certainly Israel, which I'd like to save the last for us to discuss. These 5 nations, and perhaps there are more, these are nations that are CIA-formed puppet governments that have been controlling the world to a great extent, keeping us in perpetual wars. They, with the petrodollar, the oil situation, and slowly but surely over these years, thanks to President Trump, the White Hats, and the military, we have been severing those things. But now we're going for the jugular. That's how I see it. You got Venezuela, Iran, Cuba, North Korea, and certainly Israel. And so what would you say are the common thread of these nations? And would you say that Cuba is next on the docket? Would North Korea be on the docket? And again, Israel, You know, I'm learning a lot about Israel from the various experts I interview, including you, sir. Um, we'll save Israel for last in a moment. What's your take on the connecting of the dots of these nations? Are we going into Cuba next? Will North Korea be something else? These are CIA, Rothschild, London entities that we are severing. Help me out with this because that's the surface. I know you can dig a lot deeper than I can.
Yeah. Traditionally, wars are fought by brave men and women on the front line shooting at each other, and the leaders are way back here, and they're safe. Nobody ever touches them, but will allow the poor schmucks in the middle to kill themselves to a point where somebody is then declared a winner. And you said the white hats are going for the jugular. They went for the jugular years ago. See, this
Okay.
war's been fought top down. That's the difference of this war. It's quite elegant and clever. And when the full story comes out, it literally is the greatest story ever told. Because what happened was, it precedes this moment. But you remember Trump's capitulation tour, Saudi Arabia,
You're right. Yep.
right?
Yep.
Right.
That's
Right.
where it began.
What
You're
even
right.
preceded? Yeah. Okay. That was where they went for the jugular. They started there. Remember when Xi Jinping came to visit Trump at Mar-a-Lago? That was China under control. Now, Xi Jinping, whilst he's the nominal leader of China, he was the nominal leader of China. He was just like every tyrant. He's wrestling with other groups that are trying to destabilize him. That's why you have so many fights and executions and things going on, because within China there were different families, there were different groups, power groups, all vying for control. This is normal. Just think of a mafia family where you've got the Don and you've got a few sort of young sons that are all competing for control of the family, and they'll take out whoever they need to take out. So that was China. So what DJT was, let's get a hold of China, because China's the main player. Let's get a hold of them. So let's reinforce Xi Jinping. Let's help him take out his adversaries. Let's physically help him take out his adversaries, and install him as the secure him. Let's put it that way. Let's secure him in his control of China, insofar as he will do the US's bidding. Bin Salman in Saudi Arabia, same thing. The Saudi royal family was extensive, disgusting, crooked. And Bin Salman his life was saved by DJT. Again, lovely coincidence, if you believe in coincidences. Bin Salman was then promoted as the ruler, the crown prince that took over, and everybody else was dealt with by the Saudis. They were interrogated to the point of death and executed, and that's the way they do it in the Middle East. They'll torture you to death. There's no getting away with it. You're going to die one way or the other. It'll be quick and painful, or slow and painful. And so Bin Salman was then installed as Saudi, so he's under control. And I don't mean to be condescending. This is real world. These people don't do things because it's a good idea. They do it because it's in their best selfish interest. They don't care about the people. And then the Emiratis, they're smart enough. They've been sitting this fence for a long time, and that's why I like the Emiratis a lot. And just as a sideline, people said, well, you've got so much trouble with the Middle East. Why did you work with the Emiratis? And I said, well, if you want a stable world, you need a stable Middle East. If you want a stable Middle East, you need the Emirates. That's it. In the old days, that was it, because everybody else was crazy. The Emirates were great. And so now what Trump has done, he's got Bin Salman running Saudi, and he's been going around the various countries, and they're all under control. That were the first moves. But even that was preceded by preliminary operations. But they were covert, clandestine, and below the radar type ops. We only saw the pop up when he was eventually elected, and then he's now gone around the planet. So the conditions for Iraq were set years ago by making sure all the key players are under control. Israel, we'll talk about them last, but are they under control? Absolutely. Of course they
Let's
are.
talk about them, right?
And if
Let's talk about. Well, let me recap what you've just said. The jugular was way back during the capitulation tour, which included China. I would presumably imagine the UK with the move made against the Queen, the Saudi Arabia, and North Korea, and now we're land, air, sea, as you stated, or, going through that phase of this. Talk about Israel, because um,
Yeah.
yeah, talk about
Yep.
Bibi Netanyahu. Who is he? What's Israel's role in this? And do you believe that we will follow through with some sort of action with Israel at the end?
Yeah. You go through all the major nations, the serious players. Russia had to be brought under control, and it was. Now, how are they brought under control? They either agreed to do what they told, or they were replaced with actors. And you can look at all the national leaders, look at photographs today and look at photographs 5 years ago. They're different people. Now, the average punter out there can't see it, but we can. And so the center of gravity, what the White Hats had to control to win this war was national leadership, because for a couple of reasons, not because they're actually important, they're not, because we know that national leaders of every stripe, they answer to another group, which answers to another group, which answers to another group, which answers to another group, and you work your way all the way up to the top. But the reason the national leaders were key is because, one, they are, and most importantly, they are what the people see. They believe that Vlad Putin ran Russia. Well, of all the national leaders, Vlad probably was the only one that did run his country. But all the rest are controlled. And that's why Vlad was a bit of a problem. That's why the cabal wanted to get rid of him. But all the rest of them are controlled by another group. So what DJT and the White Hats did is they came through. They certainly started taking out the people at the top, without a doubt. In fact, the worst of the worst were taken out, what's this, 26, maybe 2 years ago now. But the visible controllers, the ones that the people believe are running the show, they had to see them continue. Had they whacked all the national leaders, Trump was just another tyrant. We don't trust him. He's a bad man. But no, the faces are still there. Are they the real people? In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. Where they are the real people, they're either reasonably good people who aren't completely depraved and they're following orders, or the really depraved ones were taken out and replaced with people in masks. And so, as far as the population is concerned, in terms of transitioning from where they are to where they need to be, and this is going to shock the system, so they had to continue this facade of Israel's run by Bibi Netanyahu. No, it's not. It's being run by the White Hats. The key actor in that particular TV show is a guy playing Bibi Netanyahu. Bin Salman, that's the real guy, but he's really running Saudi. And when you're dealing with a dictatorship, they can do that stuff. It's a lot easier for them. We've got a democracy. You've either got somebody that you need to have under control, the real guy, like Keir Starmer. He's the real guy, and he is so compromised and so terrified that he just does what he's told. So whenever you see Keir Starmer from the UK say something stupid, that's because he's been told to say and do something stupid. Let's talk about cocaine with a couple of guys and boyfriends that we've had. This is all to undermine the example. And so they took that first phase was to take control of the impression of national leadership around the planet. They will go down, but in time. The next part is the control of all the planets. If you notice what he did in Venezuela, and this is where people should be nice and relaxed, they didn't go in and then remove the entire leadership and say, right, we're going to put our people in. Why? Because you can't do it. You can't replace the leadership of a country. And by leadership, I mean the polity, the judiciary, the constabulary, the military, the bureaucracy, big business, big unions, academia. There aren't enough people to run one country in this op. So what you do is you cut the head off and then you control the remainder, but you leave them in place. It's like denazifying Germany after the war. They had to leave most of them in there because they were the ones that knew how to run the trains. They were the ones that knew how to run the power stations. They were the ones that fill in the blank. And so they're just decapitating publicly the bad guy. And in Venezuela, let's leave the deputy now in charge. Now, the deputy's no better than Maduro was. But as far as the people are concerned, it looks like, oh, wow, this is okay. They're just taking out the bad guy, but the Venezuelans are still running Venezuela. Now, they are, but under direction from White Hats. And so it's quite an unusual and different war. So instead of having the soldiers shoot each other on the front lines to the point of exhaustion, where you strip an entire nation of 20 to 30% of its manhood, as most of these wars do, what you're doing is you're taking out the leadership. There must be, by necessity, some kinetic aspects to it, but they are very surgical, very constrained, very limited, and the targets are well known. It's not like the old days of sending waves of B-17 during the day, American B-17s and Lancasters during the night from the Brits, hoping to hit a target in Europe. Those days are done. Now it's very surgical, it's very, very strategic, very precise, and that's how it gets done. So it's a reverse of a normal war. Take out the leadership, pretend it's still there, because the people, they have to come along. And the people are learning for the first time with this, to jump now down to the Iran situation. They're watching the real effects of what this means to them. And you can talk about the spike in oil prices. And if anybody thinks that's the biggest deal here, they have no clue. But they understand it. And the white hats will use everything as an opportunity. What's the spike in oil prices doing to people? Oh, my God, my bread cost another 30 cents a loaf. Now, is that a problem? Yeah, of course it is, to the people at home. So now they've got their attention. And so we talk about this financial crash that's coming. This is all, in my mind, this is preparation for what's about to happen. They're creating a sense of fear and tension in the people, because it must happen. They've got to wake up. They've got to be shaken out of their comatose state and seen and shown what's going on and why. And guess what? It's not your fault, but it sort of is, because you let it happen. Oh, but I trusted people. Well, you shouldn't have. And you've heard me say many, many times, breaking trust is key to the future of this planet, to the point where people don't trust the sheriff, the judge, the mayor, unless they physically, personally know them and can walk up to them and shirt front them and get them doing what they want. So the downstream effects of all of these events are so multifaceted, but it's creating the conditions for when all this is done. Wait, then I'm talking years in the future, because this is going to take a while, where people start to realize, you know what, my name's Jack Smith. I'm responsible for my family. I've got to be a moral man. I've got to take these sovereign rights that I have to be the source of law and know what the hell I'm doing. I've got to be self-reliant. I'm responsible for my wealth, my health. I just can't outsource that to somebody else. Moral, sovereign, self-reliant, Christian. Let's have a good set of morals about us, and people are going to learn over the years that, you know what, these other religions, yeah, not so good. Not so good. That you don't have to be a Christian, but the Christian ethic is what is the only foundation of a civilization that can potentially last. Constitutional republic, hey, this is the way we govern ourselves. And these are, as you can see, I'm describing the end state for Australia 1, and there's a reason for it. Because bit by bit by bit, the people will get there of their own volition. They will realize this is what we now must be as a people, as individuals. And so it's this large, complex operation, fascinatingly being executed. But it's reverse, as I said, just to finish off. Instead of having the soldiers shoot each other, let's take out the leadership and then track it down. There are some last kinetic effects, because when people say, "Oh, we've won the war," we have. We, the people of the earth, have won the war. Well, why are they still shooting? Because we've got a few dirtbags still with capabilities we get rid of. But in terms of control of the planet, in the largest sense, it's good.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean there aren't still
Yes.
rats in the corner of the room that have to be taken out. So I hope that helps. I'll stop there.
Well, yeah, thank you. Great special ops and military background. You have insights differentiating these operations from old kinetic style wars. And so, yeah, it's been very informative. Thank you. I just want to circle back to Israel for a minute, and then I'm going to move us into some new territory. So, I'm going to basically, this is what I walk away with. We're looking at 2.0 BB Netanyahu. We'll call it 2.0. We're looking at it's a complete reversal. The average Joe who's still watching Fox News and CNN is thinking, even people in our movement, Trump is fighting Bibi's wars. He's kowtowing. No, it's the complete opposite. It's the complete opposite. And they'll find out later. I also walk away with the issue of Israel itself. We discussed this with retired Lieutenant Colonel, good friend of ours at the Global Defense War panel, Tom Lennox, on a different show I publish. naming the three broad types of individuals that occupy the space called Israel. First off, Israel, of course, back in 1948, 49, was a created entity, a puppet nation to serve the dark hats goals by the Rothschilds and the CIA. That's when the Mossad was formed. That's when the League of Nations was formed. That's when all the mess started. And Israel is created for that, in part, that purpose. But the Colonel Lennox broke down to differentiate, because of the never-ending narrative about the Jews. And what you have over there is the Khazarian, the imposters, the takeovers. You've got the Zionists in the same camp, and then you've got the true Judeans that the Bible references. So the Israel of the Bible and the people of the Bible is not the Israel of today and the Jews of today. Would you want to feed that notion in some way? And I think we're looking at 2.0, BB, and it's an absolute flip-flop of what the narrative is out there, that Trump is fighting his wars. Nothing could be further from the truth. Why don't you cap Israel off for us, please, and then we'll move into other territory.
Yeah, Colonel Lennox is correct. It's a good breakdown, and that's one that we've agreed before. The Khazarians and the history of the Khazars, the who aren't Jews, who adopted Judaism when they were forced to by the various neighbors around them, including the Russians, saying, we don't like what you do, stop it. And they adopted, and they lied. Then you got the Zionists, again, separate group again. And then your average, Jew that does what they do. They run delis, they run businesses, doesn't make any difference. But here's your problem with that, and it's true. It's not Israel, but unfortunately Israel gets tarred with the same brush, because a lot of the average Israelis have bought into the supremacist attitude of the Khazarians. A lot of the average Israelis have bought into the supremacist idea of the Zionists. So whilst that's not Israel, they've adopted that, and they're going to have to pay the price for that. It's not like they all get off scot-free. They don't, because it's a bit like the wife of the criminal. They've enjoyed the spoils of criminal activity. They really have. They've been sucking down American dollars for a long time, and they think it's their right. These are the non-Zionist, non-Khazarian Jews. They've been benefiting, and and excuse the French, but I want to be abundantly clear about this. Fuck Israel and fuck Palestine. There are so many problems on the planet. Why does the world care about this little patch of land? Because I've done this, but I've mentioned this before, and I'm being very direct. We have to our north an island called Papua New Guinea. Half it's called West Area, and those people are being slaughtered. Over 100,000 being slaughtered by Capacus, which is the Indonesian Special Forces. That's in our area of national interest. Israel is irrelevant. So I don't care. We don't care. But we're told they're the chosen people. They're not the chosen people. That's complete bullshit. We know it's bullshit. And any God that says that's not a God. It's just some sort of malignant ET pretending to be something that they're not. Let's create some chaos. So Israel doesn't matter to me one bit at all, because we've got so many bigger problems. Africa, the white South Africans being slaughtered. Christians all throughout Africa being slaughtered, and we're supposed to cry over nonsense out of this little strip of land and a bunch of whiny little shits that have been complaining for years that the biggest victims on the planet, that nobody else can have a genocide. The Armenian genocide, you can't talk about that. Oh no, that never happened. No, we just don't care about it. I don't care. Nobody cares about Israel. Go to hell. Look after yourselves. Next point about Israel and where they need to get it in the neck. Even the good ones. Something like 92% of your Congress are dual Israeli citizens. They're not really Jews. We know that. That's part of the process that they get pre-selection and they get elected. So they sign up and say, well, what do I have to do? Well, first of all, here's a picture of you fucking a little child. Okay, well, you've got me. Now sign this saying that you're an Israeli citizen. You will do what Israel wants. So has Israel, the bad guys, been running the US foreign policy for? Yeah, of course they have. And your Congress, 92% or whatever the number is, they're all complicit. Now, they're not genuinely Jewish. They couldn't care less. They just want a nice pay packet and a job in corporate America once they've served their term, providing solutions for corporate America. And that's all they do. And so they're going to pay the price too. And it's every Jew that stubs a toe, apparently it's anti-Semitic. No, you're getting what you deserve, and you're going to get it hard. This is the Khazarians, the Zionists, any average Jews out there. They're going to learn a big dose of humility. And Judaism, humility does not mix well, so they're going to hurt. And frankly, I don't care, because real people are being killed on a daily basis, and the world is sick to death of hearing about the suffering of the Jews. Fuck them. There's plenty of suffering to go around. And, we're too busy actually trying to save lives as opposed to prop up some corrupted organization from which everybody benefits except the average player. And so you've got this Jewish problem because of their making. So we don't care. It's under control. Bibi's under control. Bibi is what Trump is playing is fighting Bibi's wars. Are you kidding me? Trump is using Israeli assets to destroy Israeli assets, amongst others. So
Absolutely.
this alleged counterattacks from Iran, like Iran is counterattacking and they're attacking Dubai. And you see this video of what looks like a kid's drone hit the side of a building and a few sparks fall off. That ain't a military drone, folks. That's a show for you, okay? And if,
There you
again,
go.
I think I said it recently, if I was at the planning table, I'd be saying, look, why don't we, let's use the Israeli assets, the real Israeli assets under White Hat control to destroy other Israeli assets that are actually cabal. And we'll call it an Iranian counterattack. That's a good idea. Let's do that. And so they're doing that. They're just using the Israelis. And anybody that thinks that DJT is working for the Israelis, wow, I've got this bridge in Sydney. I'd love to sell it, and I'll throw in an opera house to go with it.
There you go. Well, thank you for getting that on the record. There's certainly a story behind the story out there. Let's consolidate this to the global defense war that we're engaged in. You certainly know better than I. By some estimates, there's at least 40 nations in concert over these years, dismantling the evil forces that have made this place a miserable place to be, and that's being unwound now in this global defense war. And let me see, where do I want to go with this? Okay, where, from that perspective, the global defense war, from the tunnels to the children to the issues we've been discussing with these state-sponsored terror countries and so forth and so on, where are we at in this global defense war presently? In other words, how close to, when I say a finish line, I know things will go on for quite some many years, especially the restructuring of the world. But where would you say we're at from your military experience? If you're sitting in the war rooms, where are we at? Are we 75% there? Are we almost at the finish line? Are we close to accomplishing the most critical things that we can seize control over this planet again and start to set things straight? Where are we at?
Yeah, major targets have been neutralized without a doubt. Some countries are now clean. Others have still a few more to go. I can talk about Australia. We haven't had those deep underground explosions. The earthquakes that allegedly occur. We've had very few of late. We had one recently. And I think these are the last ones in Oz in terms of deep underground military bases. So we're wrapping up. We, the people, not me, but the white hats are wrapping up. Most of the major objectives are taken, and now it's just finishing off the last dregs, I guess, which could take time. And people have to understand that, again, this is a real war, and this has been going on for some time, many years. The casualties on our side, I'm not sure. I don't think it's a compromise to say this, but it's in the 5 figures. Okay, that's a significant number of men and women that have actually died and wounded as a result of these conflicts that have been fought for many years. So it is a real war. It's not a game. You don't get to respawn and start again. So a real price has been paid. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again because it warrants saying. We owe a debt of gratitude that we can never repay, but we will always remember, to all of this coalition of nations that has fought this war. And people say, well, how are all the soldiers and sailors and airmen fighting the war if the governments are bad? Well, in the early stages, just so you're aware how it works, your authority for military operations is signed off, and the generals don't know exactly what's going on. There might be a cover story. They're going for an exercise activity in Upper Kumbukta West, and the troops fly out, and when they land, they hand in their blanks and they pick up live ammunition. They bomb up, and they go, and they're briefed, this is a classified operation. Don't talk, and they go, okay, and they do the operation. They come back home, and then eventually the leadership of the countries gets replaced. Authority is now given with a lot more ease. But understand that most of and this is going to be a characteristic of the post-war world. Most of the generals, for example, and admirals don't have a clue what's going on underneath them. The troops are doing stuff, and these guys haven't got a clue. And what's going to happen is the white hats, if they're smart, and they are, they would have prepared the ground. So the system, just like in Venezuela, the same people are there, but they're now under control. You can't remove entire leadership of any country in any aspect, the polity, the judiciary, and you've heard me say it a million times, it is just not doable. So you do exactly what the black hats did. You pick a couple of guys to control the rest. Now the black hats do it by blackmail. Guess what the white hats are doing too? Same thing. You do what you're told, or the wife and kids get to see this picture. Better still, we'll put it on social media. And so it's exactly the same technique that's been used against us is now being used for us. The same people for a while will be running the show to keep it going. And the worst ones get taken out, and bit by bit by bit, they'll be retired early. Instead of having 15 years as a judge, they might spend 5 years and retire for health and family reasons, and then find themselves at the end of a rope or in prison. Or just, if the crimes aren't too bad, publicly humiliated. And so the system must continue running. You can't replace everybody. It just doesn't exist. And to that point, just so you're clear on it, the numbers and these are rough numbers, but the numbers for Australia, 27 million people, same land mass as the continental US, almost, just slightly larger than us. You've got 330 million. We've got 27 million. And 2 million of that lot has recently come over from Southeast Asia and India and Pakistan and Afghanistan. So they're not Australians anyway, really. I don't care what the passport says. But let's say 27 million people. Of that 27 million, you've got maybe, 10 million children, very rough numbers. So let's just push them off to one side. That leaves you 17 million people. Of that 17 million, 15 million are likely to be Masons or controlled by Masons. This country was built as a Masonic fortress. Well, they didn't sort of creep in over time. From the very beginning, Great Britain established Australia as a Masonic fortress. This is Mason Central. So 17 million people, adults, 15 million of which are either Masons or controlled by Masons. They're the people that will do what they're told because they've got to pay their mortgage. That leaves you roughly about 2 million people, leaves me, 2 million people, or the rest of us here in Oz, to find enough to start taking control of this nation. Now, can we find enough people out of that 2 million? I think we can. So whilst it's a galling situation, I'm so embarrassed, so deeply ashamed of what Australia has allowed itself to become. But it was that from the beginning, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
But out of that 2 million, can we find enough to start rebuilding the country? Yeah, I think we can. And I said the other day, and I should find the form of words for it, but I was talking to Australia on my weekly green room, and I was talking about the pathetic situation in which we find ourselves, and that we are, and most of the countries around the planet are in this situation. I don't know if anyone's going to speak to you as directly as I spoke to the Australians, but basically we can't do it on our own. We need help. And so what I did was I provided 5 examples from history where weak, incapable nations sought out a strategic alliance with a good, strong ally in order to guide us through and help us to achieve a position where we are finally able to govern ourselves, defend ourselves, run our own diplomacy, etc., without compromising our sovereignty, without compromising our culture, without compromising our language, without compromising what it is to be Australian. Now, every country on the planet is lucky as, you know why? because you've got DJT in the White House who have publicly stated, and it's in their plan, that every country should be for their own country. DJT and the White Hats have no intention of running the planet. They don't want to do that. They're going to assist us to get from where we are to where we need to be. Where we are is a complete mess, an absolute mess. And so my read of the future, they'll leave maximum people in place because we need it. They'll progressively be replaced as reasonable replacements are identified. And we'll get this youthful, I don't mean youthful as in young, but the existing leadership will eventually be retired off or charged, tried, found guilty, and executed or imprisoned. They'll be removed over time at a pace which the country can absorb that change. And then over time, the country will begin to transition into a genuine state of sovereignty. And this will take time. There'll be good results in the early years, but for a nation to genuinely do in short time what the US has spent 250 years doing, and you started off with a fight that you fought, and so you're on the front foot from the beginning, these are lessons that the rest of us have to learn. And we will. But again, that speaks to the point of, can we do it? Yes. Is it going to take a while? Yes. Do we need help? Absolutely. But thank goodness we've got DJT and the White Hats with that 1776 revolutionary spirit underpinned by a Christian ethos, which is going to make sure that the nations of the world in the years to come, and this will be a remarkable point in history to look back at, but this is the moment where we genuinely took charge of our own birthright, our God-given rights as we understand them to be, and we did something decent with them. So it's man, what a time to be alive! Just extraordinary. As long as you can stay cool. And just before I go, just tell the people out there, relax. Whenever you see something, whenever you hear somebody say something absurd and bizarre, like for example, I heard that a well-loved and respected podcaster was accused of being a child sex trafficker. Just laugh. That is designed to destabilize you. So just sit back and laugh and take it easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. Well, Masonic Central Australia, that's the first time those words really paint the picture. And it reminds me of Robert David Steele. There was a clip I saw relatively recently. His great work is being circulated again all over the web, and thank goodness for that. And he was commenting. He said the Australian government is loaded with pedophiles. I mean, loaded. This is at one of his I forget what he calls it, the international groups he was a part of on sex trafficking, and he nailed Australia down. Your upper echelons of your government. And to my producer, let's skip ahead. There's an image I have of President Trump publishing something while we're on the subject of Australia. There it is. Just to get if you know anything about this, I don't know where it's at, but it's an interesting meddling from the president. Australia is making a terrible humanitarian mistake by allowing the Iran national women's soccer team to be forced back to Iran, where they will most likely be killed. Why does he say that? Well, they just killed, by estimates, about 40,000 of their protesters. Okay, so what's in store for these ladies? President goes on to say, don't do it. He's talking to your prime minister. Mr. Prime Minister, give asylum. The U.S. will take them if you won't. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, this is on a much smaller level, of course, not small to these ladies, but a much smaller level than, helping Australia get out of its massive tyranny from the Masonic filth, as you state. What's your comment about this post from the president? Do you know anything about how it may have progressed?
Yeah, no, I've got, I don't know where it is at the moment. We have a fake prime minister. We've got a double playing Anthony Albanese, who the real guy was a complete sleaze. Absolutely. He's a grub. He's a Labor leader, but he knows nothing about hard work. Never really represented the workers. But this is a white hat play. It's a legitimate issue in the sense that it highlights the weakness of the Australian government, as represented by the Prime Minister, in the face of an obvious, clear choice between a moral and an immoral choice. And this is a white hat play. DJT sticks his nose in, and he has every right to do so. Just like, in the future, I hope leaders of all nations are vociferous in their condemnation of countries that are doing the wrong thing. So I've got no problem with anybody complaining about us, so as long as we can complain about them. And so
Sure.
this is an issue which is, it's highly topical. It's on everybody's mind. Iran. Normally, nobody cares about Iran. If you put a story of Iran on the news, who cares? The Iranian soccer team,
Right.
big deal. Oh, there's a war in Iran, front of mind. Now the soccer team is going to go back and be executed, and so the White Hats are exploiting that opportunity to present
Yes.
to the Australian people the weakness and the amoral nature of Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister, and the government. And they're just chipping away at, excuse me, at the leadership within Australia, which deserves it, because this is relative to most of their crimes against the people. This is pretty minor, but it's a topical one. It works. Everyone's thrilled about Iran. They're dancing in the streets. The Iranians all around the world, the diaspora, are celebrating like never before and are a part of the operation. That excitement that you see online is very much part of the
Hmm.
operation, to provide social proof to the people that this is a legitimate,
Hmm.
sought after action by the US. It provides that legitimacy. And as a bonus, we get to kick Anthony Albanese in the groin and demonstrate what a weak-kneed individual he is. So it's a very clever play. As you say, it's smallish, but its impact is real for the Australians to see how weak how weak our Prime Minister and our government is.
Thank you. You know, a lot of people are asking this question. Um, Certainly in my country, that we're on this trajectory now. I mean, Cuba, Venezuela, Iran, Israel, whatever's left to come uh, in these remaining months before July 4th. So the question that people, that's on the minds of a lot of people is, how will we be, and we've touched on this before, but now that we've engaging in Iran, you know, we're in full mode with these uh, these institution governments that have been there. Uh, Now that we're cleaning it up, as you stated, it's not the beginning of the operation; it's the end of the operation. But the question people have is, how will we be celebrating the 250th, which is going to be more than a birthday for America? It's the liberation of our and the true restoring of our constitutional republic, and of course, correction for humanity, as I see it. I think there's going to be some wonderful surprises announced around that time. But the question that people have is, how can we be celebrating? Are we really going to get, and also tying into the sleeper cells in America? There's a lot of alerts. I put out a public service announcement, and I titled it as such, where I reported from the DHS and from this new FBI with Kash Patel in charge, the specific cities right now in the specific month of March in America that are what threat level the DHS and the FBI have given these specific cities, and they're all fairly high and fairly concerning, and also potentially as retaliation uh, from what's going on in Iran right now. And then you've got Antifa here and everything else. So, long-winded setup. The question is, with the dangers on the streets of America that are officially stated by the FBI that we know about, as reported presently, coupled with the fact that we're still taking care of business overseas, do you? One would come to the conclusion that, well, most of all that stuff should have settled down if we're going to be partying in July. Any comments
Yep.
about that? Because it's an interesting observation of
Yep.
the people, and I agree with. Yeah. What are your
No, it's
views?
okay. Yeah, no, it's easy. It's not as hard as it sounds. Um,
Okay, good.
what the reason, and it's a great question, what will people celebrate? There's two aspects, um, material and emotional, I guess, or psychological, mostly emotional. What they'll see, the reason they'll celebrate is the obvious reversal of policies. Now, anybody can think of a dozen policies that gets anybody really wound up. So what they're going to see is the reversal of policies. What does that mean? In terms of a material sense, you're going to see arrests and deportations. and they're actually going to see guilty people arrested behind bars. Away you go. What do they keep screaming for? Where are the arrests? Where are the arrests? Where are the arrests? And it doesn't matter whether it's the pedophiles or whether it's the Somalis ripping off hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever. Where are the arrests? So reversal of policies. You're going to see arrests and you're going to see deportations. That's one point. And there are three things that I'd hang my hat on. This is the low-hanging fruit. If you want people celebrating, this is it. Reversal of policies of the destruction of their country. The second one will be health, and the third one will be wealth. So those three legs of the stool would give everyone a fantastic boost. One, reversal of policies in terms of arrests and deportations, that's done. Reversal of policies in terms of taxation, which immediately hits people's wealth. So all of a sudden they got more money in their pocket instantly. And the last one is the advent of health modalities that start returning health to the people, and they can see that the hope is restored to their lives. And they're the three I'd go for. If I was sitting at the table, I'd say, okay, bring the rest on thick and fast. Secondly, zero tax, give them their money back as much as they can so they can start building, and they're going to have more money in their pocket. And let's face it, nobody needs an income tax. It's regressive in the extreme, but all the taxes can go. And the third one is their health. And if you've got those three, you'll have people celebrating across the country, because on that last one, their health, their children and grandchildren, and maybe themselves, they can see the hope that maybe the injuries that they are suffering. Now, not everyone's going to be saved, but hope is critical. And that hope for health is one. The practical money in their pocket is another real one, because with money, you can afford lots of stuff, including a higher level of morality, believe it or not. And of course, that first one I mentioned is the arrest and deportations, because everyone's clamoring for that. And they're the three I'd be going for. And if that could be delivered to the people after, and this is key, after a point of absolute excruciating pain, they have to feel the pain first, and then with the end of that pain, the release comes, and you take care of those three issues. People will be celebrating all around the world, because it'll be the same story in every country. That's what makes it not just the Independence Day for the United States, but it'll become a genuine global Independence Day, 4th of July, every year from now on. It'll be the independence of the world against the evil that has been destroying us.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, interesting. It spurred some thoughts and follow up. I'll remind our viewers that watch the State of the Union address. President Trump opened it up, invoking Golden Age, and he closed it, he bookended it with Golden Age. And towards the end, the final third, let's say, he mentioned what you just referred to. He said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, we don't need the income tax. You've been financially burdened for too long, and we're going to fix that. And because I love the people, something like that. And some people are speculating, and we don't want to go there about dates. And I, for one, don't think it'll be July. If it is, I'll be doing cartwheels. But I do, but some people are speculating that July will be the time where the announcement is made, rather more officially, of the IRS and the Federal Reserve no longer functioning the way they have been. I sure hope and pray that happens around July, but it will happen whenever it happens. But you also talked about health. That's Bobby Kennedy's getting a lot of things done. I've been reading some reports recently, as well as the med beds. We know they're real. We know they exist. I know somebody, a doctor, who's actually been in a med bed. But yeah, health and wealth. That makes all the sense in the world. What does life look like then? Would it be fair to say that July 4th could mark a triggering date, even if just in the mind, but also in the reality of day-to-day living for people? Would you say July 4th will be a triggering date in this global defense war that moves us and our attention and our activities into a different space? Or are we still in the dark muck of a whole lot of stuff? I mean, that's a simple way of stating it.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a good
do you
question.
feel like the light is shining brighter? Yeah. Good. Mhm.
Yeah, and it's a great question. Again, good plans officer, you can see an advantage and disadvantage in every course of action that's put to you. I can see it as being a date that'll pass, and there might be some progressive development. But to my mind, the psychological benefit to the world to genuinely celebrate that day, to give them something to remember, is too powerful. If I was at the planning table, I'd argue strongly that whatever pain the people have to feel, get it done by the end of June, and then build up to the 4th. And on the 4th, make the announcement and give them that relief after the pain. And the relief will be greater the greater the pain. Now, that's not because the white hats are going to hurt people. It's just that the people have to learn the cost of what it is that they have allowed to happen for decades and decades and decades. This is not punishment from the white hats. This is just an
Right.
understanding of the
Understood.
black hats intended for us. But as I said, I think the 4th of July, it's too good an opportunity to create a moment in time where the emotional and psychological state of the planet will all be aligned. And here's just a little point to that.
Mhm.
When an individual performs an act of selfless kindness, the recipient of that act gets a shot of a hormone, an unexpected act of kindness, the recipient. And the result of that particular hormone enhances their resistance to infection. Their immunity is actually stronger for a period of time in the hours after a random act of kindness, an act of random kindness. Here's the interesting part. The person who performs the act of kindness gets a shot of the same hormone, and their immune system, their resistance to illness is biologically, physically enhanced for the next few hours. Here's the kicker. And observe. Oh, it makes me smile every time. An observer of that act of kindness gets the same hormone rush, and that individual's immune system and ability to resist disease is enhanced. Now multiply that by the planet leading up to after the crash and the pain. This global movement of people experiencing that random act of kindness, but a massive act of kindness, of release from prison, physical, emotional, mental, psychological, and spiritual prison in which we've been held, simultaneously around the planet. Imagine, just in a physical sense, forget everything else. In a physical sense, everyone's better off for it. And then you get the psychology of it. Everybody is now, they're full of hope. They can see a future. They're on the front foot. They're sitting a little straighter in their chair. They're now full of optimism. And you've got this wonderful opportunity to get the planet from this absolute misery to the strongest they have ever been in their lives. And the entire planet is now experiencing this. Dad comes home happier, mum comes home happy, the kids are happy, everybody's happier, the pets are happier, everybody's happier. And this is, I think, an opportunity and the beginning of this golden age that DJT is talking about. But there are elements to it which people just aren't aware, but if it's played smart, and the white hats are smart, I might get the timing wrong, but that's what's going to happen to the planet. It's going to be extraordinary, folks. It really is. You don't have to believe it, just experience it. That's what's going to happen.
That is so well said, and the power of that frequency and vibration of nearly 8 billion of us flipping from what we've been trapped in all these decades or centuries to the other side is going to be unstoppable. And so we've got a lot of good things to look forward to. But I'm going to pedal back to darkness just for one more moment because I don't want it to slip away. You've mentioned a few different times in a few different ways something Juan O'Savin has also stated. He calls it a near-death experience, and you're saying the same thing, a serious, painful experience that we've got to endure before this moment that you've just defined. So it sounds to me, as a simple man I am in connecting dots, that more than likely we're going to have this near-death experience, more pain being brought upon us between now and July. And that's to me a foregone conclusion in the analytical side of me. And the other foregone conclusion for me on the analytical side is Gitmo, in terms of, because you mentioned earlier in the broadcast, people need to see the arrests. Well, since the bulk of the arrests, in my opinion, are going to take place in the tribunal side, and knowing what we all do know about, and those that don't know should watch Eyes on Gitmo, another show I produce with different military and intelligence folks, where the media center has been built. It's set up, I'm told, by retired Lieutenant Colonel Matt Mekwon's chief of staff, retired Marine of 20 years, who helped the construction side of that media center. It's like the size of a university gymnasium, and they're getting ready to fill it with reporters. And so I would think that we'll have our near-death experience, meaning things are going to get more pain, as you stated, between now and June, coupled with, again, this is just my opinion. I could be dead wrong on the dates as well, but logically, it would seem that that near-death experience will happen between now and then, whether it's in the form of chaos in the streets of America or something worse, or the economic collapse or whatever, maybe a little bit of everything. Then you have the release of Gitmo reporting, to your point you mentioned a moment ago, where we get to see the justice, whether it's already happened and is showing us, or some of the new things that are happening presently. Do you think, I know that I'm off the mark analytically, that's all that should occur before July? It would make sense from a strategic planning standpoint. But again, I'm the low man on the totem pole. I'm just the active duty civilian who's got no experience in this space whatsoever. Am I on track? Would you say that all of these things are probably going to occur before July? Wouldn't it make sense?
Yep, some of it, absolutely. There's two parts to this. There's two parts to this near-death experience, and what you said about the arrest, absolutely, that's part of the relief. That's the relief aspect of the arrests, and seeing somebody, just anybody, for God's sake, please arrest somebody, try them, execute them, whatever. Give them what they deserve, right? I got that, and yes, there will be elements of that. This will continue beyond July because there's so many of them. So it's no way you can get them all done.
Yeah.
But there will be some
No, of
done that
course.
will make the point. But the near-death experience has to have two elements to it. One is a real physical sense, and the other is the emotional sense. The money, for example, will get everyone's attention, but the real pain will come, not because they can't go to the bank or the fuel costs too much. For my money, I think the real pain will come when they realize what they allowed to occur. That we are in this situation because they had their heads up their backsides and were more worried about nonsense instead of what they should have worried about. And they are going to feel collectively immense, and they should, immense shame and regret. Now, many won't, but a good percentage of the population have that capacity, and it will be abundantly clear that because they did not speak as they should have spoken, they did not act as they should have acted, they didn't even think the way they should have thought, that will cause them great shame. And that's going to be an element of this pain that they will feel. They will look at their children, their grandchildren, and realize, my God, I've killed my family. And in some cases, that'll be true. They have to face that god-awful fact. Now, the upside is, this is where the relief comes. When the hope of health modalities become available, they've gone from, my life is not worth living, to, hey, guess what? I've been given a last-minute reprieve. And so there's the physical aspect, no money, or they're destitute, or whatever it is. And this is for the yellow hats whose investment portfolio is more important to their children. Zero that out, get their attention, and then here's what we, the people of the planet, allowed to occur. Is it our fault? No. Yes. Are we responsible to fix it? Damn right we are. And you're not going to get these people off their backside until they feel that deep, deep shame. The pain of staying where they are, with the shame of their decisions, which led to the death of millions. At least they'll leap out of that and move into a new place, which they are reluctant to do. The old yellow hats, they hate moving into the unknown. At least the unknown is now shrouded in hope for a better world, hope for freedom, hope from exoneration of their past sins of omission and commission. And so that's what's going to make them leap across into this place where they need to be. And so they're the two parts of it, of the near-death experience. But to your point, yeah, there's going to have to be some arrests, some videos. This guy, Barack Obama's gone down, Hillary Clinton's gone down, and people are just going, yes, give us more. And it's not a bloodlust. This is a legitimate right of the people to see retribution against those who have caused them such unimaginable pain and grief. There's a famous story of a small town in the United States where a psychopath killed an entire family, mum, dad, and the children. They caught him. They built the gallows. They put the noose around his neck, and the whole town was there. I think it was in the 1800s. The whole town sitting there. And they pulled the lever, and he dropped through, and the rope slipped off his neck. But it was by design. They wanted to terrify him. They wanted to go through it twice because dying was too good for him. And one of the old grandmothers from the crowd yelled out, "That's for the little uns." And then they put it around his neck correctly, and then pulled the lever, the door opened, and he was hung and killed. And if people think that's depraved or immoral, they've never seen real depravity and immorality. And they're going to be shown the full scope of what one man can do to another, what one woman can do to another, and then realize execution is a legitimate solution to this level of evil, because you just got to get them off the face of the planet and let God deal with them.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. It's really impacted me this last third of our program here, which we're wrapping up in a moment. We at least I do, and I hope a lot of our audience does. We see a big picture. We see, besides all the granular that Ricardo walked us through on strategy and tactical and all the things he had up on the charts about what's happening and setting the record straight about Bibi and Trump and all the things we've learned about, but also in culmination, the big picture is, folks, things will get worse before they get better, and we're entering that phase now. And we have to have that pain and shame, and then the relief comes, and the president has been dangling those carrots out there quite a bit, and the benefits come. Again, I'm marking July 4th as a key trigger date, and I believe that's probably pretty accurate. And I want to mention this, while we don't know, I'm not putting this on the record, folks, so you can attack me later, that I've got a date on Obama and Clinton, but you mentioned the names, so I'm going to feed on that. President Trump stated, we know this, we saw this a year or so ago and numerous times since, that Obama committed acts of treason against the United States of America, per the president, and he has stated the crime, the punishment rather for treasonous acts per the Constitution can be execution. He has stated these things. He stated all roads lead to Obama, and we have a lot of chatter now with Brennan and all those folks. I believe, and I hope it happens before July, I don't know, but it sure would fit nice to get that Russiagate trajectory going, get those FBI and CIA people, we know all the names, that set this all up, right up to Obama, who authorized it all with the FISA and the whole bit, and bring that down. At the same time, you want big names? Bill and Hillary, I'm sure, Ricardo, you've seen some of the clips of their deposition. Boy, we should unpack that next time. We're out of time right now because there's a whole lot of stuff to talk about there. Like, is it them and what was really going on there? But besides that aspect, what I'm getting at here is do you want big names, folks? You got Russiagate leading to Obama. You've got the Clintons front and center right now. This is being presented to us right now. What do you think? It's just going to go away? They're building a narrative up. Is there a possibility, sir, that we could see these big names take place in tribunals reported through Gitmo before July? Is that a possibility? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Good. And they're the ones that'll be going for. they're the ones I'd be going for. You want the big names up front because a lot of people, they need to see the big trees fall. They really do. And
Yes.
they deserve to. They deserve to.
Without question. So, one last thing while as we wrap up in the next 2 or 3 minutes, two more, we got two producers live with us here. To Sandy, if you will, take a note, please, while it's fresh on my mind. If Ricardo would be so kind as to share with us those colored hats. When I first met you way back, you brought that to the surface, and you've alluded to it here, the yellow hats. If you can send us those PowerPoint presentations or any green room speeches that you've given surrounding that subject. I remember seeing slides and so forth. I have on my website, jmcbroadcasting.com, a page called Resource Guide, where I've got key things from the president and other things up there. This belongs up there as a really great educational piece to help us through what we're all going through. I'd love to have that and post it up there. And for the record, we're starting to gain momentum at JMC Broadcasting, thanks to you and our other great military, intelligence, and economic guests on the various programs we produce here. What I strive to do is lean and mean military intelligence and economic reporting, by and large, with most of our guests, people that come with extensive backgrounds like yourself. And I think we've done a pretty good job at it collectively. My team and the great guests like yourself that I bring on, delivering the truth as we know it to be, to help people machete through this madness. And it's resulted in, I'm proud to announce, verifiable third-party analytics that I can send you, Ricardo, if you'd care to see. The data, but we're now in the range of over 10 million collective views a month from, I think, just 9 or 10 shows we publish, which is a big number. So we're starting to have our voices heard. And the reason why is because of the audience, because of the way we deliver it, and because people are starving for the truth and want it lean and mean. And I think we're delivering that. And also on our website, we have over 250,000 visits monthly. So I really want to get those colored hats that you've so brilliantly identified, which summarizes the clusters of all of us from a psychological standpoint. And I think it's a great tool for us to start to use to help people move to the next colored hat they belong in, if that can be done. And I think the nature of what you do and our other guests in the Global Defense War panel, for example, I think we're doing that. And I like to quantify it and focus a little bit more on it. So anyway, having said that, we look forward to our Global Defense War panel. We've got Derek Johnson, Colonel Lennox, Colonel Bosi, and two others joining us. I'm not sure who's on the roster, but we're going back to a 5-panel where we've been in the 4-panel. Going back to the 5-panel, I have to reduce the amount of questions. So I'm dabbling with the delivery of the Global Defense War to try and keep it as valuable as we can to people. It's a very popular show, and I look forward to it, folks. I don't have the date, but the last days of the month of March, the Global Defense War monthly panel is going to be presented. We've never missed a month. It's our second year in, and we look forward to seeing you there. Ricardo, any closing comments from you before I sign us off that you care to share with the viewers?
Yeah, if I could just indulge, if I know we're at time limits, but if I could just indulge, if you could indulge me rather, just to show those slides about the EOs from Trump's first term and how they directly linked to activities now, or the national security strategy. The reason behind that is it's easy for us to sit back and apparently just wax lyrical and pluck concepts or ideas or suggestions or opinions out of thin air. But I want to reassure the people watching that there's a lot of analysis that goes behind all this stuff, and to make it digestible for them. So could I share screen and just show you those the EOs and point out how basically future proves past, and the evidence that what we're talking about isn't just, as I said, something plucked out of thin air, but there's analysis behind it to give the people confidence that what they're hearing has has the data behind it, and it gives them a little bit of pause, a little bit of hope to know that things are as we say, as opposed to what mainstream media or some of the panic merchants out there and are talking about. So I'll quickly just bring this slide up, and I'll just provide that for your audience.
And by the way, folks that are newly coming aboard, if you want to learn more about Ricardo Bosi, you go to contributors on my website in the upper nav bar, and you'll see his photograph, his biography, and a link to follow his work beyond this broadcast. So those that aren't following Ricardo beyond this broadcast, that's the mechanism to get you there. Okay, sir, you can walk us through. We've got Trump's first term EOs on the screen.
Okay, so this is, ladies and gentlemen, you can see the x-axis down the bottom. There's the three. There's the timeline and the three terms. Now, don't worry about the fact that Biden was the pretend one. Let's just take it as read. Okay. Now, what we're doing here is I had a look at in detail Trump's first term EOs, and I sought out those that directly contribute to the 2025 National Security Strategy, which was released in Q4 of 2025. So that's 8 full years and a bit more. And as I said previously, what DJT and the White Hats had to do was give us pieces to the jigsaw puzzle, but without showing us the picture. Because if we saw the picture, then the adversary saw the picture. But now the national security strategy is out. This is what I called it Trump's love letter to the American people, because it's his way of saying, I trust you to protect the Republic, which is the greatest compliment he can give. And so now that the national security strategy is out, you can look at the EOs that came out in that first term. Now, this is a summary of a larger study I did, and I'll show you shortly. But just to take you through it very quickly. 17. These are all the EOs by date and by number and date, and the quarter in which they were released. Then you've got 2018, 2019, and 2020. So there are all the EOs in DJT's first term that directly contribute to the national security strategy, basically future-proofing past. And there's the breakdown, a total of 52. And that's really helpful, except you need to know the work that went behind this graphic. Let me take you through it. Here are the EOs linked to the strategy, and it's more than just the number and the signing date. There's the title. And you can watch this yourselves later and get a screen grab, and you can check out whether I'm telling the truth or not. Then we broke it down into each EO in terms of purpose, method, and end state. My favorite way of describing what's happening, how it happened, and what you ended up with. And then the direct contribution to the national security strategy, a statement saying, well, here's how it's linked. So let's have a look at that. Now, just to give you a specific example, I'm going to highlight it relate to Venezuela directly. So Venezuela didn't just happen a couple of months ago. Venezuela was planned well in the past. And again, the purpose of this is to show that all of this which you are watching, including Iran and everything else that has happened, will happen in the future, was planned well in advance. So there's that one. Next page, you've got one. This is directly related to Venezuela. And it's slowly building up. Again, these are the pieces of the jigsaw which only make sense once you've got the picture. Another one, and these are all directly related to Venezuela. Next page. You can see the titles there, taking additional steps to address the situation in Venezuela, prohibiting certain additional transactions with respect to Venezuela. You know, on their own, you think, okay, well, there's obviously some sort of problem there. Blocked property of additional persons contributing to the situation in Venezuela. You can see what I'm talking about. And this is just Venezuela. Yep. And you could actually go through and analyze every other aspect of what's going on. Fourth one in that lot. And then you've got the last, I think this is the last one. Yeah, there you go. Blocking property of government of Venezuela. So there you go. They're the actual EOs by title, signing date, an analysis of the purpose, method, end state, and then a statement directly. Here we go. Let's get that out of the way.
There we go.
And that gives
Let's
you
do
a
double
breakdown.
panel here.
Yeah, no, we're back. And so the point of showing you that, ladies and gentlemen, was to let you know that there is a lot of analysis that goes behind these broad sweeping statements, which sound encouraging, but you want to know the facts behind it. And that's just to give you a glimpse of the analysis that we do. And I'm not, as John said, I'm not competing with Derek Johnson. I would never dare compete.
You're giving
with
Derek a
Johnson
run for his money.
No, I wouldn't even begin to challenge Derek. He is the king. He's the king of that castle. I'll just sit back quietly and tap away at the screen, and then summarize.
But
it
I'll tell you what,
home.
Colonel Bosi, that's a brilliant work. A great work in connecting the dots and showing us that this isn't willy-nilly, let's go drop some bombs in Venezuela and Iran tomorrow morning. This has been, that's a great body of work. Where can those listening right now, they probably know those that follow you religiously, but is that available to the public somewhere? Is it in your green room? Can you direct people to access for that?
I haven't put it up on the
Not.
website. I might start doing that, but they can certainly. I mean, it's here now. All they have to do is watch this again, freeze frame it.
Sure.
Take a screen grab. So the resource is there. I might start actually putting some of this work up online so people can look at it in their own time.
It's very
but it's certainly
important.
available now.
Yeah. Thank you. I would like, if you're willing to do so, as I mentioned before to my producer, the colored hats presentation and these executive orders. I want these things, if you can, on my resource page. It's next to the 3 publications that you woke me up to. The one that you referred to, I wrote it down. I forgot the name of it. The 3 government publications. They're up on that site.
The National Security Strategy, the financial.
Yes.
The Financial Stability Oversight Committee 2025 report, and then the final one is the Department of War.
Well, yes, those 3 are up there on my site, as well as executive, just a link into the executive order world for the president, Derek Johnson 1776 documents, and a lot of other really important things. I would love to have the colored hats linkable right there and visible, as well as this executive orders, because it's very powerful. And thanks for bringing that up at the close of the show, because you're right. These aren't just, comments and opinions, although there are some opinions and forecasts, but it's well-founded and well-grounded, and you've done some great work laying that out for us. So I appreciate that. Let's go to the 3 panel with the book and wrap up this broadcast. Again, thank you, Ricardo, very much for providing me a copy of your book. I very much look forward to getting into the pages of this and reflecting upon it in our future broadcasts here. The greatness awaits you. People, you can pick it up at www.wilkinsonpublishing.com.au. Is that accurate, sir? Because that's it's on the back of the book. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you very much. Good seeing you. Nice to have you back. Our audience was on pins and needles that we lost you for Bosi Briefs. One broadcast in 2 years you couldn't make. So I'm grateful that and I've had people comment, Chambers, how do you get such, lack of better words, star power? How do you get such highly qualified guests to commit on a regular schedule with you? And the answer is, I don't know, but I'm very grateful that I do. And I'm grateful that you're here. Your words are important to all of us right now, as well as other members on the Global Defense War panel. So welcome back. It's great to have you. And we'll see you in the closing days of March on the Global Defense War panel. Thank you, Ricardo Bosi, sir. God bless you. And I'll be right back after this important message.
Join JMC Broadcasting's monthly Global Defense War Military Panel. JMC hosts an esteemed panel of military experts, including Ricardo Bosi, Tom Lennox, Chuck Sellers, Michael Jaco, Derek Johnson, Brad Wozni, and other military guests. Join us each month, where this panel of esteemed guests analyze the current events across a broad spectrum of topics, addressing the questions and concerns that you have. Subscribe for free by visiting jmcbroadcasting.com. John looks forward to seeing you at the next episode of the Global Defense War Military Panel Broadcast, right here on jmcbroadcasting.com.
All right. Another great episode of Bosi Briefs. Thank you, retired Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bosi. A quick announcement here. There's Derek Johnson. We just had some fun poking at Derek there and his photogenic mind, his ability to connect all the executive orders and so forth. Derek's available to answer your questions live with me on panel for 1 hour. This is the all-new Patriot Q&A live Thursday, March 26th, 8 p.m. Eastern. To learn how to gain access to that, visit jmcbroadcasting.com, click on Premium Portal, and we look forward to seeing you there. Get your questions answered by Derek Johnson for 1 solid hour. We had Michael Jaco last month, and it was launched with Will Barney. Very popular, very important, so that you can interact with these great guests that I bring to you on these broadcasts. So come join us. And if the Premium Portal for $9.99 a month is not for you, no problem. 99% of what we produce is free to the public, as well as our free subscription. So you are welcome to join us there as well. And that's basically, I want to thank Ricardo Bosi for his keen insights, brilliant analysis, and helping us all to make sense of this madness. So we'll just sign off here. We'll see you every other Monday at Bosi Brief, 6 p.m. Eastern. Stay safe, everyone, and may God be with you.